homesteaders, gardeners, and cooks. My name is Jennifer. Welcome to Miles Away Farm. I am making my own homemade version of chili garlic paste, which is something that you use in Asian cooking and stir fries. And we go through about a pint of it, maybe more than that, a year. And a couple of years ago, I was out of it, and it wasn't something, at the time, it's since changed, but it wasn't something I could immediately get in town. And I just had this moment of like, wait, why can't I just make that? It's chilies and garlic and vinegar. It's not complicated. And so I did. And so this is obviously, imagine if you were to buy this from an Asian grocery store, it might be made from a different kind of chili. I am using serranos, which is more of a Mexican style chili. Pretty hot, not as hot as a cayenne, but definitely hotter than a jalapeno. You want something with some pretty good bite to it. I use these in Indian cooking, I use these in Mexican cooking, I use these in Asian cooking. They're just a good all-around pepper with kind of a nice heat level that isn't blow the top of your head off. And yeah, so I grow serranos every year, and I tend to make at least one batch of this every year. It's very simple. It's not preserved in the sense that it is canned. I just throw it in my fridge, and the vinegar that's in it, and I imagine to some extent the natural antibacterial properties of the garlic that's in it. I have never had it mold, and I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now. Your mileage may vary. I just keep it until I use it up. Sometimes that's over a year. I'm sure that if you were to ask a food scientist, they would tell you, a month or something like that. But your mileage may vary. Draw your own line in the sand as you choose. But I've never had it visibly go bad, and I've certainly never gotten sick from it. So yeah, these are serrano chilies, beautiful little chilies. And I kind of have a variety of different ripenesses here. Some of these are really ripe. I hadn't gotten around to harvesting my chilies regularly, and so I did one big harvest, and some of them were a little past their prime and starting to kind of dry on the vine. So there's a few in here that I'm probably gonna need to toss or at least cut off part of, but most of these are gonna be fine. Serranos are a cool little plant. They have fuzzy leaves, very distinct from other peppers that I've grown. They dry well. I use them dried a lot of times in Indian cooking, so it's also a good pepper to just throw in a dehydrator. But so many peppers, so little time. Although I admit, if I only could grow, God, I can't imagine only growing 3 or 4 kinds of peppers, but if I could only grow 3 or 4 kinds, this would probably be one of them. In fact, I think I would grow this over cayenne, just because I think it's got more dual purpose. You could grind this and make chili flakes out of it. You could use it in place of cayenne and not have it be quite as hot. And then, of course, all of the different cooking ethnic cuisines that use it. So yeah, I think serrano would be a choice for me over cayenne, although I do love a cayenne too. What else would I must have grow? At least one sweet pepper, probably Carmen, which is my current favorite. But Carmen is a hybrid, and so if I had to grow a sweet pepper that I could save seed from and that it wasn't a hybrid, I would probably go with maybe Marconi Red, which is a bullhorn style similar to Carmen, but it's an open pollinated variety. I would not grow a bell pepper as a sweet pepper if I could only grow one, just because they tend to get sunburned in our climate, and I lose a lot of quality with the peppers because they have sunburned, and so they have bad spots and they start to rot. And so yeah, that wouldn't be my first choice. Ancho or poblano. Ancho is just the name of poblano once it's been dried. That would definitely be on my list of must-have peppers. Even over the Anaheims, I grow Joe Parker Anaheim, New Mexico peppers, which are the kind that are typically roasted, one of the kinds that are roasted in Hatch, New Mexico. And I do love them, but if I had to choose between that and poblano, I would go with poblano. I love a roasted poblano pepper, and I love a chili relleno. And then, of course, you can dry poblanos and have them be anchos, and then use them in chili powder, homemade chili powder, and homemade taco seasoning and that kind of thing. So I think I would go with poblano. So that's 3. Oh, paprika. Paprika would be the 4th one. Some kind of a sweet pepper that I could use as a paprika. I love having growing my own paprika. It's so fun. A lot of people don't even realize that paprika is a pepper. They just know it as some red stuff out of a can, and they've never thought about where it comes from. I've been growing my own paprika peppers for probably going on 10 years now. And every year I try out new varieties. They are so fun and so delicious. So yeah, definitely paprika would probably be my 4th if I could only grow 4. And don't make me choose past that, because that would be very sad if I could only grow less than 4. What are you guys' favorite chilies to grow? The Ajis have been really popular of late. I know a lot of people love the peach. I can't think of the full name of it. But it's a peach. The word peach is in the name. Aji pepper. I've grown lemon drop. I've done a bunch of different Ajis. Some of them have done pretty well for me, others not as well for me. I find there's a bunch of different families, or not families, but genus species of peppers. And the anum, which is the typical one that most of the chilies you grow are Capsaicum anum. I hope I'm saying that right. They do fine for me. But when you start getting into the Chinensis and some of those other varieties, I have a much harder time getting those to do well. And I am sure it's something to do with our climate. I have a terrible time growing habaneros, and I have a friend who grows them in town, and she just does an incredible job. They just are slightly warmer where they are than where I am, and she gets a ton, and I get, every time I grow them, I get a handful off of 3 or 4 or 5 plants. So for some reason that one doesn't do well for me, and that is it's a different genus species. It's not anum. All right, so our chilies are cut up. I'm guessing we're going to want to weigh that. It's been a while since I've looked at my recipe. All right, so it turns out I have 1 pound, 2 ounces of chilies, and my original recipe was for 1 pound, and so I'm just gonna add a little bit of extra. It called for 11 cloves of garlic. I'm gonna call it 12, since we need a little extra. Let's see if I've got enough here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These garlic cloves are pretty big. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm gonna add 1 more just because that was a little bit small. Really what we're doing is preserving this with the vinegar. And so that is really the only part of this that is critical. The rest of this you could do to some extent to taste. But it is a garlic chili paste, and so there is supposed to be a good amount of garlic in here for sure. And what I did, I looked up and Googled recipes for this, and I also just looked at the ingredients on the side of the jar. And so between those 2 things, I just kind of riffed on things and came up with something. And it served me well. I'm really inspired this fall to do a lot more kind of meal prep. I tend to be very easily distracted by food, and so rather than having things in regular rotation, I just am, looking online and run across some random thing from, one of my favorite bloggers or YouTube people, and then just go make that. And so it's very rare for me to make things regularly, like on a weekly or twice monthly basis. Seasonally, for sure. I definitely eat very seasonally, and there are a lot of things that make a regular appearance seasonally. But yeah, I'm not very good at just, it's Tuesday, it's taco night. But it would actually save me a lot of stress. I love to cook, but there are, I do 99% of the cooking in the house. My husband is really not somebody who enjoys cooking. And so we have division of labor, even if it is traditional. I do the vast majority of cooking, and most of the time I enjoy it. But there are definitely times when it's at the end of the day and I've done a million things and I'm really tired and I just want to throw something together. And he's really good about helping if I ask him to. And so I can say, hey, cut up these vegetables. We're doing a stir fry, and he'll help out with that. And so I'm trying to do more of things like prepping the meat for a stir fry and freezing it with the marinade, so that all I have to do is think about it, the night before, or I could even defrost it in the microwave, but ideally the day before. Just take that out of the freezer, throw it in the fridge, and then, put on a pot of rice, and cut up some whatever seasonal veggies we've got and do a quick stir fry. Easy peasy. And rather than, I don't know, there's something about facing a big chunk of meat that I have to cut into strips and then marinade and then do a stir fry. Those few extra steps, which really aren't that big of a deal, just seem like a lot more of a big deal. And so I'm trying to do a little more meal prep. You see off to the left of me here, we raised our own lamb for years, and we're getting a quarter of a beef tomorrow. And so I've been working really hard to clean out some of the stuff in the freezer so that we've got room for that beef. And I realized I had like 3 years worth of lamb chops from lamb. And part of it, part of the problem is we had an older sheep who was butchered, and I didn't label it well. And those particular lamb chops were more tough. And so I've been really hesitant to just reach in and grab lamb chops for dinner because I didn't know which ones were the older ram. And they were pretty chewy. And so I was kind of disappointed. What I ended up doing, I thawed out all of them, which I think was a total of maybe 12 packets. So a lot of lamb chops. And made up a marinade, put them in these freezer seal bags, and then sous vide them. I have a sous vide. I rarely use it. It was one of those things, kind of like the Instapot, where I resisted it for years, and then finally went ahead and bought one as a Christmas gift to myself, and then I've just barely used it. I don't know. It's not intuitive to me or instinctive to do a sous vide. I have a girlfriend up in Spokane who loves hers, and so she's often inspiring me to get with it and start using it more. Anyway, what I ended up doing was sous vide all of those lamb chops, and what I did when I was putting them in the seal bags was weighed them. And so it was really obvious which one was the older ram because they were quite a bit bigger. And so now I know which ones were the older ones. And so I sous vide all of the lamb chops and sous vide for extra time the ones that were older, which was really what inspired the whole thing, because you can take a tough cut of meat, and with a sous vide, if you cook it longer, a lot of times it will tenderize and be really, really good. Whereas if you just threw it in a pan and fried it, it would not be. And so that was what it was inspiring it. Anyway, so I sous vide a whole bunch of lamb today. And it was an interesting process. I used a really big tub. But my husband's out of town. I'm going to have lamb chops for dinner tonight. Try these. These are the older ones that went in for an extra length of time. And so I have them separate. But I'm going to try those tonight and see how well it worked. Okay, enough of that. All right, my original recipe called for 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I'm going to do a teaspoon and more like 3/4, since we are a little bigger. And then 2 tablespoons sugar. Quarter cup of vinegar. Add a little bit of extra there. And this is based, the amount of vinegar on this is based off of the amount of vinegar that I use in a fermented hot sauce recipe, which is 1/4 of the amount of the total weight of the peppers. And so we may need to add more just to make this liquid enough that we can actually grind it. So we'll see how we do here. This is, after all, a chili garlic paste, and so this should be pretty ground. We definitely want things to be well chopped. It smells amazing. If you wanted to do something like this and make it less spicy, you could use a milder pepper, or you could have taken the seeds and the veins out of those. Kirby, what's the matter, bub? You want to go outside? Okay. Here. Sorry, cat interlude. Yeah, you could use a not as hot of a pepper, or you could take the seeds and the veins out of your peppers before you ground them. All right. Oof, that smells kind of amazing. That's not going to work. So we'll go with a pint here instead, or with a quart. Nice clean jar. You don't have to sterilize it because the peppers aren't sterile. And as soon as the peppers hit the jar, whatever was on the peppers is also going to be in the jar. You could ferment this. You could follow my recipe for fermented hot sauce and just ferment this and then grind it, or actually just ferment it and then put it in the jar, and it would probably be fantastic. Different product altogether, but still great. And literally, that's all there is to it. Well, there you go, tribe. Chili garlic paste. That's all there is to it. Ready for stir fries this winter? Thanks for watching.